The box was still open on the table. He didn't touch it. He just looked at me. Then he said one word. Disappointment. No anger. No explanation. Just that. I waited for him to say something else. Anything. A joke, maybe. A correction. He didn't. He pushed the box slightly away, like it didn't belong there. Like I didn't. I nodded once. Closed the lid. Picked it up. He turned on the TV. Didn't look back. That's when I realized something was very wrong. I didn't react the way people expect you to. No argument. No raised voice. I went back to my apartment that night and placed the Rolex on my kitchen counter. It was still in its original box. Receipt inside. Warranty card untouched. $10,000. I had spent months planning that gift. Not because he needed it. He didn't. He had more watches than he wore. But because I thought it would mean something. Something simple. Something clear. I was wrong. The next morning, I went to work like usual. Emails. Meetings. Coffee. Conversations that didn't matter. I answered questions. I nodded when appropriate. No one noticed anything different. That helped. By the afternoon, I had already decided something. I wouldn't bring it up again. Not yet. I've learned that when something doesn't make sense, pushing for answers too quickly just gives people time to adjust their story. So I didn't ask him why. I didn't call. I didn't text. Instead, I paid attention. That evening, I checked something I hadn't looked at in a while, our shared family account. It was something he had insisted on years ago. Easier, he said. Transparency. I had never questioned it. Until that day. At first, nothing stood out. Regular transfers. Utility payments. Routine. Then I noticed a pattern. Small withdrawals. Not large enough to raise alarms. But frequent. Always rounded numbers. Always spaced just enough apart to look random. I scrolled back further. Months. Then a year. It wasn't random. I leaned back and just looked at the screen. Still no reaction. Just observation. Later that night, I stopped by his place again. Unannounced. The Rolex box was gone. Not returned. Not mentioned. Gone. He opened the door, surprised, but only for a second. Then he smiled. Normal. Calm. Like nothing had happened. Forgot something, he asked. I shook my head. Just checking in. We talked for a few minutes. Surface level things. Weather. Work. Nothing real. Then I noticed something small. On his wrist. A watch I hadn't seen before. Not the Rolex. Something cheaper. New. He caught me looking. Picked it up yesterday, he said casually. Needed something simple. Yesterday. The same day I gave him the Rolex. I nodded. Nice, I said. He smiled again. Too quickly this time. Then he changed the subject. I let him. On my way out, I passed by his study. The door was slightly open. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. Not yet. Something wasn't adding up. And he didn't seem worried at all. That told me more than anything else. When people think they've done nothing wrong, they act normal. When they know they've done something wrong, but think you don't know, they act even more normal. Careful normal. Controlled normal. That's what I saw. So I went home. Sat down. Opened my laptop again. And started going through everything more carefully. Not just the account. Everything. Messages. Old documents. Access logs. Things I had ignored because I trusted him. That was the mistake. Trust makes you stop looking. And I had stopped looking a long time ago. So I stopped reacting. And I started watching. The first piece of proof came 3 days later, and it was almost ordinary. That was what made it useful. I was at work when my bank sent a fraud alert. Not for a major purchase. Not for a transfer. Just a login attempt from a device I didn't recognize. The kind of warning most people clear without thinking. I didn't clear it. I checked the device history. One approved login from my laptop, one from my phone, and another from a browser session tied to an IP address 10 minutes from my father's house. I didn't confront him. I just downloaded the activity report and saved it. Then I checked the shared account again. The pattern I had noticed before became clearer once I stopped looking at it like a son and started looking at it like a record. Small withdrawals, yes. But they always happened within a day or two of one other thing, a deposit into an account I didn't recognize. Same last 4 digits. Same timing. Same amounts split into parts. It looked clean at a glance. It wasn't. I called the bank and asked for archived authorization records. The representative was careful with her wording, but she confirmed something important. Several changes had been made to the account settings over the past year. Recovery email updates. Notification preferences adjusted. Paperless statements enabled on one sub-account I rarely checked. I never made those changes. I asked for the dates. She gave them to me. Every single one was during a period when I had been traveling for work, or out with friends, or busy enough not to notice anything small disappearing. Again, I saved everything. Then I remembered the study. My father never liked technology, at least not publicly. He always made a point of asking me to handle the online stuff. It was part of his image. Old school. Direct. Uninterested in details. But details had been moved. Deliberately. That evening, I went through old email archives. Years of them. Search terms only. No guessing. Password reset. Notification change. New login. Verified device. And then I found one message that should never have existed. A forwarding confirmation. Not on my main email. On an older address I had used for family paperwork. The forwarding destination was partially masked, but the first letters were enough. It matched an address format tied to a business my father used for consulting, which mostly seemed to consist of receiving money from people who owed him favors. I printed that email. Then I found something worse. A voicemail from 6 months earlier that I had never listened to because it was from a blocked number and only lasted 11 seconds. I almost deleted it back then. Now I played it. It was a jeweler. Professional voice. Neutral tone. He was confirming that your father had collected a watch on my behalf and that the sizing would be adjusted later as discussed. I listened twice. Then a third time. The timestamp mattered. It was from 6 months earlier. Long before the Rolex gift. Long before the word disappointment. Which meant this wasn't about one insult. It wasn't sudden. It was a pattern. He had been using my accounts, my contact details, and in at least one case, my name. Quietly. Confidently. As if it was normal. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was emotional. That part had already settled into something colder. I stayed awake because I kept finding little things that made the whole picture cleaner. A courier receipt. An address confirmation. A service invoice copied to an email alias I barely remembered setting up. By morning, I wasn't confused anymore. I knew what he had done. And worse, I knew why he had said disappointment. The Rolex had offended him because it changed the balance. It looked like generosity from me. It made him look smaller. And men like that don't reject a gift because they don't want it. They reject it because they can't control what it means. So I kept collecting records. I labeled folders. I made a timeline. And when my phone lit up with his name that afternoon, I let it ring until it stopped. Confronting them would have ruined everything. By the end of the week, everything was organized. Not emotionally. Structurally. Folders. Dates. Copies. I didn't keep anything in one place. That would have been careless. One copy stayed on my laptop. Another went onto an encrypted drive I kept at work. A third was uploaded to a private cloud folder under a different account, one that had no connection to anything he could access or guess. Redundancy matters when you're dealing with someone who assumes control. Then I made a list of what I actually needed. Not revenge. Protection. Recovery. Clarity. The money could be tracked. The access points could be closed. But the part that mattered most was making sure it couldn't happen again, not just to me, but to anyone else whose details he might already have. That meant I couldn't handle it alone. I contacted a lawyer the following Monday. Not someone dramatic. Not someone who would escalate things for attention. Someone quiet. Precise. I sent over a summary first. No conclusions. Just dates, amounts, documents, and recordings. He didn't reply immediately. That was a good sign. When he did, it was a single sentence. Come in tomorrow morning. His office was exactly what I expected. Clean. Minimal. No distractions. He read through everything without interrupting. Occasionally he would underline something. Once, he asked me to replay the voicemail. When I finished, he leaned back slightly and said, "You did the right thing by not confronting him." I nodded. He explained what I already suspected, but with clearer language. Unauthorized access. Financial misuse. Identity representation. Not dramatic words. Just accurate ones. He also pointed out something I hadn't fully considered. The pattern suggests confidence, he said. Which usually means repetition. Possibly beyond what you've found. That mattered. Because if he had done this once, he had likely done it before. And if he had done it before, there would be records elsewhere. The lawyer suggested two things. First, we notify the bank formally, but not immediately. Second, we involve a financial investigator to trace any linked accounts or transfers beyond the shared one. Quiet steps. Controlled steps. No alerts yet. No warnings. That was important. If my father sensed anything, he would adjust. Close accounts. Move funds. Change behavior. I needed him exactly where he was. Comfortable. Unaware. Over the next few days, I followed instructions carefully. Access logs were requested through formal channels. Historical transaction reports were expanded beyond what I had originally pulled. The investigator, someone the lawyer trusted, started mapping connections between the unknown account and others that appeared briefly in the transfer chain. It wasn't fast, but it was steady. And every new detail fit the same pattern. Small movements. Clean timing. Nothing obvious on the surface. Everything deliberate underneath. Meanwhile, I kept my routine unchanged. Work. Calls. Occasional visits. I even went back to my father's house once more. This time, he was relaxed. More than before. He asked about work. Told me about something trivial. Poured coffee like everything was normal. I watched him the entire time. No tension. No hesitation. He believed the situation had passed. That the Rolex moment was just that, a moment. He thought I had accepted it. That I had moved on. That I wasn't looking. At one point, he mentioned the shared account casually. We should probably simplify that at some point, he said. Too many moving parts. I nodded. Yeah, I replied. Maybe. He smiled. Satisfied. 2 days later, the investigator called. Short update. Clear. There were at least 3 additional accounts indirectly linked through the same transaction pattern. Different names. Different institutions. Same structure. One of them had received funds originating from my account months earlier. Another had transferred money into a business entity tied to my father's consulting work. It was no longer a suspicion. It was a system. And it had been running quietly for a long time. The lawyer set the next step. We would file a formal report with the bank and provide the compiled evidence. At the same time, a notice would be prepared for law enforcement, but not submitted until the bank confirmed the internal findings. Timing mattered. Everything needed to align. No gaps. No room for explanation or denial. The meeting was scheduled for Friday morning. At the bank. Private office. Limited attendees. My lawyer. A senior compliance officer. And someone from their fraud department. I didn't tell my father. I didn't change my routine. Thursday night, I even answered one of his calls. We talked about nothing important. He sounded calm. Almost bored. That told me everything I needed to know. Friday morning, I arrived 10 minutes early. Sat down. Placed the folder on the table. Waited. When the others walked in, they greeted me politely. Professional. Neutral. My lawyer gave a small nod. It was time. Outside, the day looked ordinary. Traffic moved. People walked past the building without noticing anything different. Inside, everything was already decided. They thought it was just another day. It wasn't. The meeting lasted less than an hour. No raised voices. No confusion. Just a sequence. My lawyer spoke first. Not with emotion, just structure. He outlined the timeline. Then the accounts. Then the access points. Each supported by documents already placed in front of them. The compliance officer didn't interrupt. She followed along, occasionally marking something with a pen. When it was my turn, I didn't add anything new. I confirmed what needed confirming. Dates. Devices. Authorizations I had never given. That was enough. The fraud specialist asked a few questions, all technical. I answered what I could. My lawyer handled the rest. At the end, the compliance officer closed the folder and said, "We'll begin internal action immediately." No drama. Just process. By early afternoon, the first steps were already in motion. My access was secured. All shared permissions were suspended. The unknown linked accounts were flagged for investigation. Temporary holds were placed where necessary. Nothing visible to the outside. But everything had shifted. At 3:40 p.m., my father called. I let it ring once. Then I answered. "Hey," I said. His voice was different. Still controlled. But tighter. "Did you speak to the bank today?" he asked. Direct. No small talk. "Yes," I said. A pause. Then, "About what?" I didn't rush. "About the account," I replied. Another pause. Longer this time. "You should have talked to me first," he said. Not angry. Measured. "I'm talking to you now," I said. Silence. Then he exhaled slowly. "This is unnecessary," he added. "There are explanations for things you don't understand." I didn't respond. Because explanations only matter when they come before the evidence. Not after. "We'll sort it out," he said finally. "Come by tonight." "Okay," I said. And I ended the call. I didn't go alone. When I arrived that evening, my lawyer was already there. Not inside. Waiting outside the building. We walked in together. No rush. No tension. Just steps. My father opened the door before I knocked. He looked at both of us. Not surprised. That told me something. He stepped aside without a word. We walked in. The house looked the same. Nothing had changed on the surface. He gestured toward the living room. "We Saturday." He stayed standing for a moment, then slowly took a seat across from us. "I assume this is serious," he said. My lawyer placed a thin folder on the table. "Yes," he replied. Then he opened it. Not everything. Just enough. Printed records. Dates. Transfers. The voicemail transcript. The login history. Each page placed calmly between them. My father didn't touch them at first. He looked at me instead. Trying to read something. There was nothing to read. Then he picked up the first page. His eyes moved slowly. Then the next. And the next. No denial. No immediate reaction. Just calculation. When he finished, he placed the papers back down. Carefully aligned. Then he leaned back. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. My lawyer didn't respond. I didn't either. Because the documents had already answered that. He continued. "I managed things. That's all. You were busy. I handled details." He said it like it was reasonable. Like it had always been that way. "Without authorization," my lawyer said calmly. A slight pause. Then my father shifted. "Authorization can be implied in families," he replied. That was the closest he came to admitting anything. And it was enough. My lawyer closed the folder. The bank has already initiated their process, he said. Access has been revoked. Investigations are ongoing. Additional parties may become involved. No threats. Just facts. My father's expression changed then. Not panic. But something close. Loss of control. He looked at me again. This didn't need to happen, he said quietly. I nodded once. You're right, I said. And that was the only agreement we had. The consequences unfolded exactly as they were supposed to. Quietly. Formally. The bank completed its review within weeks. Funds were traced and recovered where possible. Accounts were closed. Restrictions were placed. Further inquiries extended beyond just my case. His consulting business came under scrutiny. Transactions that had once looked ordinary were re-examined. Some clients distanced themselves. Others asked questions. No public scene. No spectacle. Just a slow tightening of reality around him. As for me, everything was separated. Cleanly. No shared access. No overlapping accounts. No assumptions left in place. The Rolex was returned to me through a simple process. Logged. Verified. Transferred back without comment. I didn't wear it. I placed it in a drawer at home. Not as a reminder. Just as an object. I didn't visit his house again after that night. There were no final conversations. No closure discussion. Everything that needed to be said had already been documented. And everything that needed to happen had already started. A few months later, I changed apartments. Not far. Just enough. New locks. New routines. Simpler systems. Nothing shared. Nothing assumed. Sometimes people ask why I didn't confront him earlier. Why I didn't argue. Why I didn't demand answers. The truth is simple. Because answers without evidence can always be changed. Evidence doesn't. That night, everything was quiet.